Hey everybody, welcome to Brick by Brick. I'm your host, Brad Critchfield, and with me today, my good friend, Mr. Jose Solache. Jose, you do a lot of things, and a lot of things for the community, but you're the president of the Chamber of Commerce. You are a sitting city council councilman for Lynwood, and but that's not it. And you recently ran for Senate as well. And
I almost forgot about that one.
Did you? Are you trying to forget about it? I know,
sometimes.
I know it was a lot of work. And honestly, would you ever run again, you think?
I would consider in the future.
Yeah.
Something different, of course.
Yeah. You do a lot for the community. And you've always, I mean, as long as I've known, you've always been a public servant. What I want to talk about today is what made you want to be a public servant? How did you get into it? And why is it important?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I think you've been trying to get me to join you on one of the podcasts.
I have.
And we've tried from the angle of work. Better?
That's a little bit. You got to get it right up there.
From the angle of work-related stuff, obviously with the different, I don't know what day we're living in anymore, but
I have no idea.
The different situation. To obviously just having a dialogue like today. So I think, there's no perfect timing, but there's always good timing.
Yep.
And so I'm happy to just join you and have a conversation. Of course, when you ask about, community involvement, that's something that's near and dear to me and just, I think, part of who I am today. And it's funny because when I think about it, my family, it's very apolitical. They're not political at all. It's funny. Yeah, it's just really interesting.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously through me being involved, they've gotten more engaged in civic engagement, I guess.
I thought you said your mom used to go to board meetings.
Well, I mean, that's just my mom being a mom and being the PTA mom and being engaged, right? But I'm saying from Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, I see what you mean, like the political.
The
bad side of it.
Right. Well, that's one opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, like being engaged and being a part of policy isn't
right. But when I get engaged in any given campaign, it could be a candidate, it could be an issue. My family, for the most part, has not been involved. Obviously, me being involved, that's changed the dialogue a little bit, and I think that's part of what we do as folks that get involved. You get them to be involved.
Did your family work with your campaign, like walk and
yeah? So I mean, when we were campaign seasons, obviously they get involved. I mean, I've ran technically 6 times now, 5 local elections, and then 1 for the Senate. So every election, my dad. So
which ones have you run?
So I've run 3 school board races.
3. That was your first
first at 23 years old. That was my first election.
23.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow.
And
were you the youngest on the board?
Yes, the youngest.
Wow. Youngest ever?
Latino. I think there was a Latina younger than me before me.
Yeah. Dude, 23 is young, man.
Yeah. I was actually 22 running in the summer of that summer, because you pull papers in the summer of July, actually next month.
Yeah.
So season of campaigning.
Yeah.
And so what happens is I was 22, then I turned obviously my birthday. For the most part, every September 10th, that's my birthday.
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part, and then I turned 23 that year, of 2003.
Yeah.
So then that was my first time running for public office. So that was so 3 school board, 2 city council. So that's 5 that we won. And then obviously the Senate didn't quite go our way, but obviously that's 6 elections.
Was that hard for you to not win the last one?
It was hard in the sense of, obviously you have a vision, you have ideas, you have some policy ideas that you would want to tackle, right? Maybe not necessarily you're going to win them all, but at least tackle some issues. Mm-hmm. And so obviously from that angle it was. But you've gone to know me, and folks that know me, they know that I love local policy work, and I love staying involved in my local community. I was raised in Lynwood, so to me it's a natural thing that it's just part of who I am. I mean, I'm 39 years old, and it's my
young man.
It's my 17th year in public office.
What's the average? Do you know? I'm quizzing you now. Do you know what the average age is in let's say Congress?
I don't know Congress, but I could tell you my first experience in realizing that I definitely was young. I went to a school board conference that happens every year, the California School Board Association.
Yeah.
And I was elected that November 23, and then I go to my first school board conference. and I felt people thought I was the student board member. So a lot of the school boards
funny.
have a student representative. So there'll be one given high school student that sits on the board, and that's good because they get to have a input into regards to the board meetings. So when I'm walking the aisles of the conference, where I don't know if it was the southern one or northern one, always alternates every year. So I'm walking the halls and people are like, "Oh, what student board member or what school district are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm the new board member in Lynwood." So it was just interesting because it's not it was usually older retired folks, maybe not as minority as I am.
Right.
Obviously things have changed drastically 17 years ago to now.
Sure.
We see a lot more representation in different communities, but it was interesting that folks thought I was the student board member because not only was I younger, but I was a little skinnier.
Yeah.
So I definitely
you miss it though, huh?
Yeah, because now it's like for the first time. Funny you asked me. For the first time, I had been the youngest since 2003. Then this last re-election, 2018, to the city council, for the first time, there's a younger council member by like a year, but he's younger than me. So I'm 39, he's 38, I believe.
Right.
And so for the first time, now there's a younger sitting colleague of mine where I've been used to being the youngest one from all. I mean, at one point on the school board, the oldest person could be my grandmother's age.
Yeah.
Two of them could be my mother's age. And then who was the other person? I forgot the top of my head, but those three, I remember one. And then the funny part about that, just a quick funny story about the older board member. It was 2003, and I get elected, and I do like my intro speech.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Rachel Chavez, and a beautiful person that has served our community for 24 years. She's retired now. But I told her, "Hey, Rachel, I brought her picture." So I had a brought picture in like 6th grade. She gave me my graduation promotion when we had regular graduations.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah. Seems like just
Yeah, feels like it was a few months ago.
So then she now I'm her colleague, but she was a school member when she was at my promotion for 6th grade. And the funny part, she goes, "Oh my God, I still have that dress in my closet." So she's like, "It's time to get rid of it."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because at that time it would be 2093. It was 10 years later. That's weird. I got elected to the school board 10 years after my 6th grade graduation.
That's crazy.
Because 93 was my promotion, and then 2003.
Like 12 years old to 22ish. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's insane.
So 6th grade. But anyway, the funny part with Rachel is she's like, "I still have that dress." So she's like, I have to finally get rid of it.
But it's crazy though, right? Because like being the identity of like, oh, I'm the young up and comer, or I'm the new kid on the block, to like all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm not anymore. Like this is, or it's slowly slipping. Like I feel that, I'll be honest, the youngest I've ever felt was when I joined Rotary Club. I felt like I was like the young guy, and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
The new kid on the block.
Yeah. Probably because I always wore like tank tops to like the meetings. Everyone else was like wearing.
And you
ties.
still do so.
I still do. Like this is not. Yeah. I'm learning though. I'm becoming a
I'm happy you're maturing.
I'm trying.
Hopefully it's rubbing off.
It is. So school board by 23, ran at 22. 23. And then so you were elected 3 times, you said?
3 times. So I was elected and re-elected twice to the school board, so 3 elections.
Okay. And then you went for city council of Lynwood.
2013, I ran for 10 years later. I ran for city council, and we won.
How was that first race for you?
It was good. It was good in the sense that it's the same community members, so obviously the same electorate, so same folks you represent on the school board. Community-wise, you represent on the city council. And the funny part about that, I would always joke with folks, "Oh, well, anything outside the fence of a school, you could talk to the city council about that."
Right.
Well, we have to be careful what you say sometimes, because now that I'm on the city council,
you're like,
now it's my turn to deal with that. But now my line's like anything inside the fence, that's school board, school board work. But that's mainly the major difference in regards to our community and in regards to who, what you represent. Because at the end of the day, we're one community. We're one city, and Lynwood, we're about 70,000 residents. On paper, we're really more like 80,000 at this point.
Yeah.
We're 4.0.
When does the census, the results come out?
So that's what we were just talking to some community members, because yesterday was like a national census day yesterday. So there was a big caravan in our local cities. Anthony Rendon, our Speaker of the Assembly, represents our community. And so he and a lot of local, representative and organizations were doing a caravan. So then the census numbers have to be submitted by this calendar year, 2020. And I believe the new numbers come out soon as 2021. In fact, there's redistricting for the different congressional seats and state seats that we should know by summer of 2021. So I think by then we should have sometime in 2021 the because we were just asking that same question. When do the
Yeah.
actual results come out?
Right.
But they definitely
How often do they redistrict?
every 10 years.
Thank you, sweetie. Mandy brought us water.
Oh, awesome!
I feel
Thank
like
you.
I feel like a little kid in his basement right now. Thank you.
Yes, every
sweetie.
10 years. Every 10 years we have the census. So 2010 was the last one, and 2020. So per the census, every community gets obviously, as we know, funded
So then you get like more seats, right? And you get more representation. So how much? Thank you, baby.
Thank you.
How many seats? So it mostly affects Congress, right?
Yeah, so like from obviously the national level, we have always 435.
Cheers.
435. Kind of weird to cheers with water, but thank you.
Oh. It's 2020. Anything goes.
That's always the first for everything, right?
Yeah.
There's 435 obviously national congressional representatives, and once the census happens, then all the seats are divided, by district and representation.
Right.
So,
So what is the? I feel like I'm quizzing you now. I just want to learn.
I know, I didn't realize it was a civic, class.
I know. You'd think I'd have like access to Google or something.
Yeah.
But what? So there's
435 members of Congress.
So what does that make it like per person? It means there's so there's like how many people in the U.S.? Like 375 million or 400 million?
I don't know the number per congressional member. Obviously,
let me try this. Hey Alexa, how many people live in the United States of America?
According to the CIA World Factbook, as of 2017, the population of the United States is 327 million people.
Thank you. So 327.
Divide that by.
So Alexa, what is 327 million divided by 435?
327 million divided by 435 is 751,724.1379.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of representation. So that means 170,000 people per one rep?
700,000?
170,000 per one rep?
So a little under 200.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, give or take, depending on the exact other math that that was used 2010 because it was 2010 numbers.
Right. So it's probably more.
That's 7 years.
So that's why you need to redistrict, so you add more representation, because you don't want that number to get, 250, 300,000. Right.
I mean, it's like the state. We have 40 state senators. So that's, we have 40 million people in California.
Mm-hmm.
So each state senator represents, a million people. Where every assembly member, it's almost like we say it's 2 assembly districts for state senate. So it's about half a million people that a state assembly member represents at the state level. Now, so you're talking about 500,000, 1 million at the state level.
But then on let's say city council, you're talking about a much smaller number.
Right. I mean, so LA, obviously there's LA County, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're 10 million people in LA County. 10 million people. Again, give or take, 10 million people. From that, there's 88 cities in LA County. City of LA is only one of those 88 cities. People forget that cities like Lakewood, Lynwood, Long Beach, they're one of those 88 cities.
Yeah.
Some of our smaller cities like Lakewood, Lynwood, compared to Long Beach, obviously in LA, but they're still one of the 88 cities.
Right.
And for the most part, those 88 cities have their local government representation. So local mayor, local council.
Now, do you like that idea of like being local and having much more of a relationship and connection with your constituents?
Absolutely. I think
it has to get lost at some point, right? With the millions of people.
So I think that's the case with the Congress. Like, how do, again, personal opinion, not necessarily everyone's opinion.
This isn't going on the internet.
No. But I feel that, when we bring resources and or take action for our local community at the local level, you see that impact. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about being local representative. I could see my streets being, repaved. I could see local, trees being planted or trimmed. Where at the congressional level, there's such bigger issues, regional, that there's things that they have an impact without a doubt, but they're more grandioso, more big picture items.
Yeah, and they have to weigh a lot of different things that can look a lot of different ways. So it's not as direct of a relationship between the people you're serving, because there's so many different people and so many different interests going on. I think we're really lucky to have representation around here. That it's pretty. I wouldn't say like they're easy to reach. Like you could sit down with them. That's one thing I love about say Todd Rogers, mayor of Lakewood, like, I mean, he hasn't been doing them lately, but the coffee with the mayor, it's amazing. Like to think, that you could just like go down the street to Javatini's and have a cup of coffee with the mayor and talk about, you know, your city. So do you do any events like that? Because you were mayor last year.
Last year, 2019, correct.
What events did you do to really like connect with the community?
The similar events you have, you know, coffee with the mayor, and for ours, we're at the senior center, for example. So those, our current mayor, for example, have, well, she was continuing them, but then COVID happened, and you know, then things just completely changed for everyone. But prior to COVID, she had restarted those at one point, and then I had done them in the past. But it's a good way to engage the community, you know, engage the community with like, again, the local seniors, and you hear it directly from them, right? So it's not like just some superficial, they're calling their member of Congress or their local representative at whatever level, and you know, you'll have a staff member call them. Well, at the local level, you are that person, right? You know, we don't really have like staff like as maybe the state reps or the congressional folks have that represent them while they're doing the work in Sacramento or in Congress. We get to go to the local parks. We get to go to the local coffee shops, like you said. You know, Mayor Todd Rogers does an excellent job on behalf of not only Lakewood but his entire city council.
He really
does.
There's
definitely a great dynamic, and I applaud him. And I think he's an example of when people say, "Well, what does local government really mean?" And I mean, talk about someone that's keeping their community informed. You know, he does this weekly updates. He's informing Lakewood about what's happening. And he's engaged, you know, obviously someone that was a, you know, retired deputy sheriff to now, you know, continuing to be a local representative. But that's why local representation matters, because I believe, as Todd Rogers believes, in local control. I believe that local control it's critical.
Now, do you think this is, I don't mean to interrupt, do you think this whole crazy nightmare we've all kind of been in together?
Which one, 2020?
Yeah, I know. Hey, hit that light for me. It just went out, and I'm like, I put way too much effort.
How do you?
I think maybe the came unplugged. I was trying to balance that globe on it earlier.
I don't want to break it.
No, just break it. It's fine. It's only like $60. It's cool. Is it plugged in?
I don't think there's a. Oh.
Oh, did it fall out?
Yeah.
I blame you. I think you did it. You were still gonna break that.
They're gonna break it.
You're gonna break it. You're totally gonna break it.
Hold on, let me get this around.
Did it fall all the way back there?
Yeah.
You're a mess, man. So one thing while you do my home repairs, I feel like this kind of nightmare that we've all been, you know, getting through together has really cast a light on how much control really is at the local level, and the ability for local representatives to respond to their own constituents. And again, maybe I'm wrong, but I'll kick that back. Well,
definitely local, obviously, using, you know, our local mayor in Lakewood that we both obviously work with. You see how critical having a local representative that advocates for a local city is critical. But then the funny part about local government, the county technically is local government. Yeah. And we all go about our days and don't really see the impact what the county maybe does for us on a daily basis. Yeah. But talk about how COVID-19 has changed that conversation. We're seeing daily updates by the county health director on what's going on. Right. And now
they all had to learn how to use the internets and stuff.
Well, that, and then we get this mandatory curfews that the county has power to do.
Yeah, man. It's kind of, I'll be honest, like,
but the authority that the county has, right? And I'm not saying that in an ill, I'm not.
No, it's just a matter of fact.
It's a matter of fact. Like, oh, wow, there's a curfew. Our phones are all buzzing. Like, you're in a meeting, there's 4 of us, and there's our phone, there's like this an alert.
I think there's been a big awakening to like who, you know, really is, who has the ability to put their foot down and tell people what to do. And I think, and it's twofold for me, because on one hand, I honestly feel that our local, for me, in Bellflower and in Lakewood, have been incredibly responsive, communicative, and transparent about what they can and can't do and what they can advocate for, and really the limitations
Exactly.
on their authority moving up, right?
Mhm.
I think they've been very clear with that. And I think at first people were it was hard for some people to understand, but I think
Right.
we all kind of get it now. But now moving forward, it's like, wait a second, like maybe our local representatives should have a little bit more say in how their cities are run.
Mhm.
Now, some things some things I can see the debate, but
And that's why I think some of us that have been involved for a while,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term, we believe and continue to advocate for local control, because when it comes down to these major situations, having a local voice is critical.
yeah,
Sometimes we get the whole, well, why does the state tell us what to do, and why does the county? Well, I mean, at times that is necessary, because
yeah,
these
because you're on the same team.
these
at the end of the
statewide
day.
issues,
Right.
this national, for that matter, worldwide
Even
issue.
counties, man. Like if one county thinks something's better for them and the other one doesn't, if you're not playing on the same team,
Right.
then you're really kind of sabotaging the other's decision too.
And for what it's worth, Brad, I think what's gonna, hopefully, and I'm obviously a very optimistic person, what I hope this helps create in the spirit of civic engagement and people being involved is, as people are electing their next council member, their next county's representative,
Mhm.
they're really paying attention, like, okay, this person has a lot of authority if they were to win, so I need to make an educated decision. Obviously
They're gonna look into it a
in
little bit
Lakewood,
more.
we have Janice Hahn, and
Uh-huh.
she's great for our area.
Mhm.
At least that's my personal opinion.
Mhm.
And she does a lot of good work for our district. But she'll turn out one day.
And she was very responsive, because
Very responsive.
At one point, even if I didn't agree with everything on the county, but whoever agrees 100%, right? But so one thing throughout this that really stuck in my mind that I think was a really good thing that was done is when Mayor Todd Rogers put out that he had written Janice Hahn, and that these are the things like he was recommending. And then, the next day or 2 days after, she had revised and included some of those things. So it really put a spotlight on like how having local leaders that have relationships up the ladder make, because if you're hard to work with at the city level, it's much harder for somebody to read that letter and take it seriously. But when you have good relationships and you are communicative, that's how things happen up the ladder, right?
And that's critical. That's critical, Brad, for really bringing results to your local community. In this case, us that are serving local communities, having those relationships with your local state senator, your local, supervisor, county supervisor, those are critical, because as you're having these dialogues and these conversations, and again, the spirit of keeping local control active, it's important. And I think you hit the nail on the head with when the mayor of Lakewood sent a letter to the county supervisor saying, hey, A, B, C, and D, because obviously Lakewood has a local mall and has other, things that are critical to Lakewood's, community. And having a supervisor that listens, right,
Yeah.
like Janice did and continues to do, that relationship that the mayor and the local supervisor have, it's critical. Because you imagine if they were not on speaking terms and
Right.
not returning your call type of
Right.
kind
Or
of moment.
even if you like, I mean, and how relatable is this, especially as we move into like what would be the election year, is that just because you might disagree with somebody on something,
Correct.
you still need to be able to work with those people.
Mhm.
So you need to be able to separate, like, always putting forward what's best for the people that got you there in the first place, right? So even if you don't necessarily see eye to eye with somebody, like being able to communicate and have that relationship is so important.
And my personal advice for that, I have a, take it for what it is. I have some good advice for that from a policy angle, and then obviously this is an advice for any member of the community is when the election happened, I asked everyone to please they do what they need to do to make sure they promote their candidate, to speak well about their candidate.
Did you just say Alexa?
I didn't say Alexa.
Alexa, turn off, man. We're trying to have a conversation.
Estás chismosa.
So rude.
So nosy.
Come on, man.
They're listening to us.
Dude, she hears everything. Isn't that so crazy?
It
not
is.
Not the rant, because I will, but we give up a lot of like privacy these days, and we don't even care anymore.
Yeah,
We're like, dude, it turns on the lights. I don't have to move my finger.
Exactly.
Hell yeah, I'm in.
but again, the just to not lose my train of thought on the see, I already lost my train of thought.
I know. I apologize. Well, actually, no. I don't. She
It's
did
Alexa's
it.
fault.
Yeah, she did it. Don't say her name, dude. She's gonna wake up.
but it was something about local
So
government.
it's very important to support candidates and campaign for them.
And that's important. And I think we should all show that passion, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously, let's talk about the presidential election for a second. I mean,
gosh, really?
But
I'm kidding.
Just from the angle of everyone has the right to advocate for their candidate, right?
Right.
And in this case, whoever the president be, we have to support the president because we have to all continue working together. Obviously, you have to support what they're doing all the time.
We didn't do a very good job of that the past 3 years. It's crazy how much it's like rooting against the person flying the plane a little bit. Even when like a lot of like complaints are very just. My only hope is that going into this election, people just keep cool heads, because I think people forget pretty fast. But 3 years ago, I remember looking at Facebook and people were saying, they're all saying the same thing. I can't talk to my family. I've taken family off of my Facebook. My, Thanksgiving is awkward. Can't even talk to
Remember that first year of Thanksgiving after?
It was
2017.
Intense, man. And I get it, man. It's good that people are politically involved and things are thought provoking. That's okay. But we have to remember, we all have to work with each other after the election.
Well, let's put the national example to the side. I think I should have stayed with my local representation example. But the example I was giving, not only from a community angle, but even from us as elected, it's like we win elections, we lose them, right? So for those of us that have won the local elected position, after the election, it's time to govern and start working together. Right. And I think the frustrating part for me is those folks that don't leave that campaign behind. Like it's over. Let's move on. Let's now start. Yeah. Now it's time to do the people's work.
And to piggyback on that, what's also sad is when somebody loses an election, what it can do to them psychologically, to where they might feel like just sense of failure or unwanted, or maybe it might pull them back from being as engaged.
Right.
When really, I mean, and this is something that we see in elections all the time. When people run, they campaign on being very engaged, and then if they lose, like, you just never hear from them again.
Disappear.
And I get it. I do get it. Like, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about the office or the seat or the position. It's about, like, are you somebody who cares about your community, that wants to do things to support it? And yeah, if you want to run for something and put yourself in a position where you could have even more of an impact, that's great. But
I've shared, obviously, we would like to all believe that every single person in our community supports us. That's not the case. That's just the politics part of the work of the job. But I always tell people, look, even if we don't agree, let's take the example. There's 10 things. There's 10 issues that we could list, right?
Yeah.
We might not agree on 6 of them. Let's say it's a majority, because we obviously don't agree on a lot of things.
On issues or solutions?
Just an issue. So an issue that we don't agree on.
I'm not going to take you away from your point. But
you are.
I'm gonna jump on the point. I was having this conversation on the last podcast of I really think that most people can agree on the same issues. Like, if you said something like, is this a problem? I'm like, yeah, it's a problem. I think the only time people really disagree, well, I don't want to say the only time, but most of the time, it's just on, like, how you solve the problem.
Fair.
Right? So,
that's
like, and that's what really gets me when I'm if I do find myself in a debate, which I really try not to do anymore, is I try to think of, like, are we really disagreeing on the problem, or are we just saying that we have different solutions? And I think that you can really appreciate somebody else's opinion or idea. Mm-hmm. It's just when you're arguing on, like, whether or not something's a problem, that's when it can get kind of like, whoa, dude, like.
But see, going back to the point that I was making on the people that
I did take you away from your point.
No, it's fine.
I didn't think I was going to, but I did.
No, it's I think it's a fair, what you're saying it's fair. But what I guess the one point that I want to make sure I finish giving the example of is those folks that are still stuck on, the campaign didn't go their way, or even the worst part, they're sort of winners. Have you heard that before? So they've won, but they're still upset, right?
Yeah.
So then the example that I was getting to is, if there's 10 things on the list, but hey, guess what? We can work on 3 things that we actually agree on to work on, right? Just to agree that we're going to work on. Yeah. Again, it can even be different solutions.
Just pay attention to, and put effort into.
But for me as a policymaker, that's my olive branch to say, let's work on those 3-4 things that we can work on because we agree on a solution, right? Or some solutions. And, let's disagree on the other ones. Simple as that. I mean, it's just that simple. But I mean, wouldn't you rather work on the things that we can work together and just say, I'm cutting you off 100%, and that's not healthy for anyone in any community, because we want to move things forward.
And that's where I think that's where so when you sat on school boards, were you a part of boards that were working together and seemed to be very concentrated on the kids?
Absolutely. I mean, no, I feel very lucky at the school board level, at least my 10 years there, for the most part. I mean, did we have disagreements at times? Of course, that's just the nature of human life, right? We disagree on something. I mean, I'm sure you disagree at your job or with your wife. You disagree.
Never.
Never.
I'm a smart guy.
Yeah. You always say yes.
Yeah, always.
But the point there is, you find common ground. You find things to work on. And the best part is you build that rapport. Does that make sense? Like you build that rapport of finding common ground. And at the end of the day, it's working on those issues that matter. But at the end of the day, I feel very comfortable that even though, again, our senior board member, Ms. Chavez and I, for example, we might have disagreed, but I know that her heart and her passion was in the right place.
That's the biggest. So respect is like the biggest thing.
Respect is huge.
So
it's huge.
There's people that I can disagree with.
Right.
And I respect them so much that I don't even get defensive about like wanting to be right.
Right.
I go like, oh wow, you're okay, well, why? And then I have ears for what they're saying, and you could take it in. And I try to be like that more often than not. Because you could really tell how much somebody values your opinion by how fast they shoot it down and put theirs over on top of yours. Yeah. And it happens a lot, man. Well, look, I'm guilty of it sometimes. We all are.
We all are. We're human,
everybody
right?
wants to be right all the time.
Look, my dad taught me one thing. Respect.
Only one thing?
Well, one of many things.
I got you.
Respect is earned, not bought. So you just can't buy respect. You can't be like, hey, can I have a little bit of respect today? No, you can't just do that.
Yeah.
You earn that. So, it's like a give and take.
Yeah.
Okay, we might not agree on everything from a policymaking angle or colleagues, but we have to give and take,
Do you know how you earn it?
But respect is big.
You know how you earn it?
Actions.
No, by shutting up. So my thought is this. If you listen to other people and you do it a lot, when it's time for you to express yourself, people listen.
Right.
But if you are always just like opinion and you're just kind of like, it's like a shotgun, like going everywhere, people stop respecting what you're saying because it just gets lost in the noise. So that's why, that's one thing, like with my dad, he was kind of a militant, kind of authoritarian type president. Sorry. Wow. Freudian slip. Parent. Yeah.
Parent.
So when he did raise his voice or when he did speak, it was like you were quiet and it was like 5 words. And you knew, like, but
my dad, without knowing, he basically believed in corporal punishment. I mean, that belt and that shoe, and did you get spanked? I mean, here and there. I mean, I was not the perfect son. I want to be perfect all the time, but things happen. You kind of fell off that line, and it happens, right? But if you see my dad today, true story,
nicest guy ever.
The nicest person in the world. I
was talking to Duke about that. His
my 2 nephews. They're just like, my dad's a whole different person with them.
It's a grandkid thing.
But I'm like, that's not the dad. I mean, my dad had always showed love in so many ways. Obviously, I'm not complaining. My dad's a great person.
Yeah.
But just the way he
good disclaimer. The way you were afraid you were going to get a spanking.
I know, right?
That's what it was.
No, but the way he raised us, right? My sister and I, he was just more strict. Yeah. Right.
And there's something
showed
to
love
that,
in
man.
So many ways.
I have a whole philosophy on that, but I was talking to Duke about that because his dad picks up his grandson who goes to school with my daughter, and he is the nicest guy ever. Like, just like, honestly, if you met him, you'd just be like, dude, this guy is like amazing, just amazing. And like, Duke's like, he wasn't always like that. And that's same thing. My dad's still kind of the same, to be honest with you. But there's something about like when it's your grandkid, you just give him right back, or maybe you look back and like, maybe I was too hard as a parent. I should have enjoyed those times more, and maybe it went by so fast. I wish I could just.
And things change, right? I mean, my dad obviously would always take me on my field trips when I was in school. He was always, that good dad of doing his part. But I don't remember going to movie theater with my dad when I was a kid because, my nephews go to the movies all the time with, or not now, but before, or often enough that I don't remember that dynamic happening back in the day, right? And so part of when I was school board, I would talk to parents about parent engagement and why that's super important, right? Again, from experience, my mom was always there. I never knew my mom not being at a local open house event or PTA meeting, or I grew up Catholic, so going to catechism every Saturday was important for my mom. So she would take me every Saturday. Teachers were like, "He's ready, first communion." My mom was, "Nope, one more year," because she just wanted me to continue going.
Yeah.
But she was that involved parent. So I always tell parents when I was in school board, and I still tell them, it's important that you stay engaged in your child's education.
Yeah.
I mean, I see you now with, your daughters, and obviously, Tori, and, she's in school and you are involved. I just walked in and your wife was, having a session, class sessions with, on her iPad.
Those online sessions are tough though, man.
I can't even imagine.
Difficult.
We deal with so many different issues when I was on the school board, and one of the things that we dealt with, obviously, budget cuts in '08, and fast forward to today, I can't even imagine, and I sympathize for my school district leaders, and we have an amazing superintendent in our school district. We have good board members, but it really is a challenge. I mean, adapting to these new, I don't want to call them norms, because I hope they're not norms, but definitely listening.
It's a very different moment in time, and it's hard to grade people, right? Because even teachers, working at the college, I see a lot of it where teachers didn't sign up to be an online instructor. Some of them are like old school, like they're not that great with computer, and they don't have to be, because they're teaching something that's like normally face to face, and so it's hard to grade them poorly on, and if they don't transition over very well. But we all need to learn, and we all need to adapt. We all need to put in place policies that are going to help students, and not only just put those policies in place, but make sure that we have achievable goals, and make sure everyone's working together in order to achieve those goals. Because I'll tell you right now, like with my daughter being special needs, she's kind of been left in the dust.
Right.
Okay. From my perspective.
Of course.
And I don't think it's anybody's fault, but it's something that we need to address. It's an issue. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, we got to be able to agree on the issue. Like when a special needs, like if you give my daughter a laptop and say, okay, you're going to log in and do work for an hour. Like, dude, it's not as easy as it might be. I mean, I'm sure some kids.
And then let me ask, how do you do an IEP now? Because obviously
we were just talking about that.
I remember being a board member and working with our special needs community, and obviously the parents specifically, and obviously, folks being champions and advocates, is a better word, for the IEP process.
I was so nervous in the first IEP. I don't know why.
But
I really was.
But you did that physically. Imagine now, especially those first-time parents have to do one, and it's virtually speaking.
And I'm not making light of the situation. The only thing I do different with my IEP is not drink so much water before I started, because I had no idea they were that long.
They're long.
They're very long. I think it was like 4 hours. It was long. So now we're talking, like, do we do a Zoom IEP? And is that as effective? Like, first of all, I think a lot of people are just zoomed out, right? In the very beginning, it was kind of like, oh, hi, everybody. I haven't seen your face. Talk to me. Tell me what it's like out in the world. And then like 3 weeks go by, and it's just like, hey, guys, what's up? Now it's like...
And everyone wants to talk at the same time, and who's speaking. It can be a disaster.
Now. Yeah. So IEPs are a big thing. But then also, like, going into this next year with funding, and there's going to be a lot of challenges.
And statewide for that, education, cities, man, we're all going to be dealing with the budget cuts, right?
Yeah.
Budget or financial hardships, right?
And it's going to be important to not just, and you've dealt with me on the chamber board before. I tend to be very results driven, and very like, okay, these are the things we can't do, but let's focus on things that we can do, and let's get really creative. Right. I mean, dude, like, I want to talk about, this might be a good segue. Now, like, we have some cool stuff going on in the chamber that I definitely want to talk about too.
Absolutely.
But like, even yesterday, I mean, like, we were talking, you had an idea, and I was like, that's it. Let's do it.
And we made it happen.
Or we're making it happen. We're making it happen right now. Well,
it's in the process.
Yeah.
In progress.
Jody's making it happen.
In progress.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's what it takes. It takes communication, conversation, because like so many things need to happen in order for a solution to be to work. Like, for instance, like, you and I both had to make the time to sit down and talk about it. We had to be we had to care enough about that problem in order to talk about that thing, and then also creative enough and like ability to bear risk. Like, okay, let's try this thing, and if it doesn't work, guess what? A little egg on my face. Like, whatever.
But guess what? We gave it a try.
Give it a try. And like, I think that's the biggest thing, like, not being afraid to fail, being innovative and making sure people know that you're working and that you're gonna do things to the best of your ability to make sure that the goals are achieved, and that's it. So that might be a good segue, actually.
Yeah, of course.
So school board for 10 years, right?
Current council.
But
But it all came from being involved, I think, at an early age, right? So specifically for me, I always credit my student government years. I mean, I think that's what helped shape who I am today. Besides my parents and family and mentors but I believe maybe when I became the student body president, ASI president at Cal State Dominguez Hills, I think that gave me such a policy perspective, right? Of like the work from, and I told people, just take 3 random students on campus. Take 3 students. One cares about parking issues. One cares about, schoolwork, and the other one cares about partying, right? Just I have to represent those 3 plus the other 12,997 because it was like 13,000 students at the time. So it's just I've learned that at an early age. And then I was like 21 when I was student body president. But then again, talk about relationships. I met Robert Garcia, now the mayor of Long Beach. Rex Richardson, the council member in Long Beach, was a student body president there. So I've met so many folks throughout that process that I think that experience itself and student government in general, just being involved, really gave me that interest of staying involved, of staying engaged. One quick vivid memory I have is I became the statewide chair, so chairing all the statewide association for all the student body presidents. We have 23 Cal States. And I would take a 6 a.m. flight, testify at a 10 a.m. Senate Budget Committee, right? And the state's capital, fly back for a 7 o'clock class. And that experience itself was, as a student, you could do it all, right? You don't have to sleep. You could do it all because you're young and, you could do it all. But I remember that experience really helped me, like that interest in policy and interest in how the state worked, and at the local level with the student, the campus and campus issues. And we dealt with budget cuts with the student fee increases, back then. So having that experience, I think really gave me that staying engaged, staying involved.
And it's crazy like how you don't realize like the chain reaction. So similar to you, when I was at Long Beach City College, I was basically homeless, right? Like I slept on my friend's floor. They were awesome to let me like live there while I went to school, and I worked at Subway. I was a sandwich artist, so I don't know if you knew that. I was an artist at one point, and I really wanted to get a degree. I don't know why. I really wanted to get a degree, and I was willing to get it in whatever. So I was studying music, and but my grades weren't great. I was touring with a band at the time, and like I was like, I was having fun but working my butt off. But then I heard about this program called the President's Ambassadors, and if you did that program, they pretty much they pretty much, you're gonna get into Cal State Long Beach as long as you did this program. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I started doing these events. Went to, I think I did a campaign rally for Bob Foster, and that's where I met Mayor Robert Garcia, and he was the head of that program at the time. Him and Camille Bolton, who's a good friend of mine, and now I have the pleasure of working with her at the college. But at that time, I must have been 20 years old, 21.
So similar.
Yeah, and we went on this trip to Big Bear, and everyone was there. It was great, and I remember talking to Mayor Garcia, and basically I got motivated to get more involved in politics. And when we came back from the trip, I changed my major to poli-sci, and then I started doing that. My grades improved because it was something I really enjoyed. I transferred to Cal State Long Beach, and I probably spent 3 semesters at Cal State Long Beach and like 6 years at Long Beach City College. I don't even remember my Cal State Long Beach years, but it's like that chain reaction. And now, like I get to be more involved in different ways. But if I wouldn't have like joined that one club and like got a taste of like what it feels like to be engaged, there's no way. And while everybody else was out like partying and doing stuff, like I was trying to go to events and seeing how I could help and support the community.
I hope you party a little bit.
I did.
Okay. So did I.
Yeah, but it was like back in the day of MySpace, so I'm pretty sure they erased all that.
That's good.
Yeah, I hope so.
But that it's funny how life is just like a full circle sometimes, right? So my involvement at the college, just like you, it really sparked so many interests in so many ways, right? And one of them is the fact that I was exposed to traveling down up the state, the state capitol. I testified in front of a Senate committee. Who would have known that years later I would have run for a state office, right?
Right.
Even though it didn't work out, the fact that I was
But
sitting,
you can always say you did it, though.
right? But I was
that's
sitting
huge.
as a student leader, testifying to the state, budget committee on an issue that mattered to students, right?
Yeah.
To then even think that one day I would have possibly been on the other side. And so one of the things I always tell parents on a school board, even now as a local leader, is make sure your students are exposed to anything, outside of Lynwood. And I mean that in a very good way, because I love my community. I think we have a lot to give. But the fact that when I would go on, college tours, I'm like, oh, wow, there's nice homes.
Experiential learning is the most impactful. So, like,
exposing them to experiences, correct.
Watching a commercial for a college is one thing. Going on a campus tour and and picturing it, like you're there and you feel it. I mean, honestly, and not to go on this segue, but that's why I think everybody should have to do like police ride-alongs. I think that whatever. We don't know what we don't know, and it's just as important to learn what you don't want to do as it is to figure out what you do want to do. And I think that high school students especially have this like weird burden, and I know I felt it, I don't know if you did, but like this, what are you going to do after high school?
Right.
And it's like, dude, I'm 17, like back up. Like I'm, and I remember that pressure was so hard. It really it acted like a tranquilizer for creativity, a tranquilizer for ambition, because it was like, oh, I have to, like pick one now, and it was crippling. And I think it is for a lot of people. So I think it's really important. That's why I think community colleges are important. I think,
absolutely.
I think giving students as much experience and hopefully, they figure it out really young so they can get a head start on things, but giving people the time they need to explore and experience and not just like force people into something that they're not going to be passionate or happy with, because I think that's a big part of just thinking more community wide, like depression stuff. Like people need to be happy with what they're doing.
Absolutely. And so that's why one of my goals in life, either through my day job, right, through the chamber, through my elected office, or even serving at the Rotary Club, right? So I was the first Interact High School president for the Rotary at the high school level at my high school. But I always remember being having the opportunity to experience field trips, experience traveling with the CSU and different. And I've actually visited all 23 Cal states in my life so far, and that's awesome to know, because then I know that I can share those experiences with others. But to me, it always has been my mission or goal, if you want to call it that, to ensure that as many kids as possible get to experience life, right, in different capacities, because you never know, you might spark interest in a child, I don't know, in a science field or in in a law enforcement or in the medical, whatever the interest is. Maybe that student didn't know that he or she was interested in that. Not
only interested, but maybe worthy, right? They don't know that that's an option.
That's another good point.
But so I have a question. What would you say was say maybe 2 or 3 of the most difficult things about being on a school board? What do you remember being like those were the big challenges?
I mean, naturally, the biggest part in my 10 years was the budget cuts that we had to deal with. I mean, how do you have a child come into the school board meeting and tell you, don't cut my mom's job or my parents' job, right? Yeah. I mean, I didn't run for school board to cut people's jobs. Right. That was just a situation that we were living, right, at the time with the budget cuts in California. And then the just natural challenge of seeing parents not involved in their kids' education. That is so heartbreaking. Yeah. Because, and I mean, look, my mom went to 6th grade and my dad went to 3rd grade. That's the highest education they had. But
my mom went to 9th.
But okay, so yeah, trying to show.
I know, fancy. I know.
But the point there, Brad, is my parents didn't have to have an education to care to be involved. Does that make sense? So that's what I always tell our community and any community. You don't need to be what I call. I use my parents as the example. My mom was not Dr. Mom or Dr. Dad, but they cared enough to be involved, right? Yeah. So they can help me with my geometry work in high school. They can help me with certain, language barrier, obviously, language being a challenge for my parents, specifically my mom, but that didn't stop them from caring to find me the resources to stay engaged, And so even though I didn't value that as a kid, because, you're a kid, you don't value things, but now as an adult, I remember all those things that now I reflect on why, their involvement mattered.
Yeah.
And so for me, I always tell parents to stay involved in their kids' education.
You know what my biggest revelation as an adult was that parents being involved in their kids' education isn't just about their test scores
Correct.
or about how what they learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a who they learn to be, right? And how they learn to value themselves, and knowing that they're worth their parents' attention, they're worth the attention of the teachers, they're worth the extra effort that goes into making sure that they're cared for. So I think, like, my parents didn't push school at all. Like, they were really hands off. Like, my mom was just amazing mother, and just cared about she was just like very, very loving, but she didn't really push school. And my dad really didn't either. So I almost like stuck with school and like made sure I got a degree, almost like in rebellion. Kind of, it's like, if you're going to pick a way to rebel, might as well pick a good one, right? But I do think more parents should be involved. But I also understand, like myself growing up in Section 8 and like in having a really hard time financially as a family unit and having 5 brothers, that some parents aren't in a position to really do it. So not to sell anybody short, I know everybody can do something, but that's where, parents that can put out the extra effort, it's not just about your kid, it's about the other kids that maybe don't have, a chaperone for that field trip, or, somebody to show up and just be there for them. Right?
No, and I feel fortunate and blessed to have my parents on my side. Not every kid could say that, and I know there's natural challenges for our families, and
so stop rubbing it in, bro.
Come on. Well, I mean, obviously there's natural challenges with different family, statuses, if you want to call it that, and we have to be understanding of those situations. But when all possible, that parent figure, I guess is a better term, it's important to be engaged and involved in that child's education. And that being said, I don't want to call it philosophies or
call it a philosophy. Sounds way
or
cooler.
Mindset.
No, philosophy.
Philosophy that I believe in. It's something that I heard one time. It's education transforms a community, right? Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, you could take that statement of education transforms a community in so many ways, because it's not just a post, a higher education. It doesn't mean a degree from a college. It means just education. I mean, just something as simple as being informed of something, right? Yeah. I mean, I could go in an array of issues, but just how being informed on something helps you just be a little more engaged in a local city. Mm-hmm. Something as simple as knowing that you could just call a trash company and they'll pick up your bulky item. You call them instead of some irresponsible people that we see through our communities that just leave maybe a couch or a mattress. That's just something that's so simple. But if we were informed of how that's possible, to then the other extreme of obvious, and maybe not extreme, but another example of of course, a degree for the matter does give you a different opportunity in life, right? But it can. But I've known and know many amazing people that don't have a degree, and they're doing amazing stuff in life. Right.
I don't think necessarily a degree is for everybody.
100%.
I think the idea of a degree, it does show your value in the workforce, meaning like you can stick to something for that long, you can put in the work, you don't quit when it gets difficult. There's all these things. But I'll be honest, man. Like, I went to school for poli-sci. I didn't learn shit. Like, I really, like, I learned to read books and to take that information and, like, kind of decipher, like, what's valuable, what's not. And I had to write papers. I mean, I wasn't the best student. Like, Mandy, she was there when I graduated, and I would, like, do, like, all-nighters, like, doing these papers.
I'm sure.
But they were good papers.
I'm sure they were.
Yeah. But she didn't write them, I swear. But I do think that there's something to say about, like, you're taking that time to develop something that you're interested in. But as an adult, I probably learned more on YouTube than I have in my schooling, right? So
but you were informing yourself. You were
so it's still education.
So a better word is like maybe not education but knowledge. Like just
right. I see what you're saying,
and that's what I'm saying. Like knowledge. I hate the cliche of knowledge is power, right? But that's what I mean by education transforms a community. And what I mean by that, from a simple, like I said, us. I mean, for me as a city councilman, I hate seeing bulky items on the street, just randomly mattress, or I hate seeing that. But if I know we help continue to educate our community that.
But how do you educate the community? Because this is something that I'm very curious about, because we are we are in a new age of communication, and we're going more so very fast. Do you think communities do a good job of like, most people get their information from social media, so Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, for better or for worse, that's where most people get the input, right?
Who reads the actual paper now? That's why we have a our own side conversations about.
Hopefully everybody.
Yeah, everybody. But I read the LA Times online now. That's why I read it online.
I read all my stuff online.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
So things like, I mean, there's that awesome, and council member Jeff Wood always talks about it. Vice Mayor Jeff Wood. There's an app that, like, say the city of Lakewood has, where you can just, like, say you see graffiti, and you want someone to take care of it. You just open up the app, you take a picture of it, and they're very responsive. They come and they take the graffiti off. If there's trash, there's a whole list of things that they'll
example,
do.
As long as they were informed and they have the knowledge of how that works, and that's what I mean by a blanket statement, right? And I give the random example of a bulky item to obviously a degree. I know not necessarily in either extreme, but I use those as just two simple examples. But I'll use a third example. This morning I was getting a haircut, trying to get ready for this little interview moment.
Isn't it so cool that you could say that and not have to
oh my God,
like hide it?
Or yeah, because we're open and we can have a haircut.
You can have a haircut now.
But I don't have a furrow going on my head because it was really.
Yeah, I look good, man. Looks good. You look very cleaned up. You cleaned up for the show. I like it.
But that being said, get to the point is, I'm very proud of my barber. Has a great story. He's now on his second business, right? Local business. But guess what? He provides for his family and for himself by having a business. He's providing jobs to local barbers, but he didn't necessarily have to go to college to do that. But he
actually did.
Well,
barber college.
Correct. Yes, correct. You have
Just saying.
Yes, barbering
literally
school. Correct.
Yeah.
But yes, so I'll stand corrected on that. But what I'm saying, the traditional 4-year college.
I know what you mean.
Traditional 4-year college.
Yeah.
That's what I was alluding to.
Yep.
But again, he educated himself and informed himself, and not only did he get his license to become a barber, he now has a business.
But he also took the risk in order to make the business.
Correct.
And that's another hard part, especially moving forward. It's hard to not talk about today, right? But that's another thing, like creating confidence in people to be able to open up a business. Mm-hmm. We're going to see a lot of vacancies in our cities. We're going to see a lot of, we're going to see unemployment go up, right? We're going to see a lot of businesses.
It went up 1.5 million today. Again, Thursday, numbers came out.
We're going to see a lot of businesses that have worked really hard to make it through COVID, right? I didn't. I was out quick. I was like first round done.
Well, I don't want to use my board member examples, but you are one example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's it was the right decision for me, because I had a feeling this was going to last a little bit longer than people. Like at first I was kind of like, oh, this is fine. We're going to just extra sanitary. Then all of a sudden, like, I think you had let me know, you're like, dude, they're going to shut this, they're going to shut it down. And then like there's something like very ominous like came over, and I was like, dude, this is bigger than what I think it is. And that's when like I was near the end of the lease, and I was like, okay, I'm going to step back, because if I want to step back and open up a business, I can do that 6 months from now and everything be fine. But a lot of businesses have taken out loans. They've created more debt, and they're to their credit, they're doing what they can to keep their dream and their business alive. Unfortunately, I know as consumer confidence stays low, that if they had a hard time making it before they racked up the new debt, it's gonna be hard to make the payment on that debt after, especially with less business coming through. So at bare minimum, unemployment will go up, but then also business vacancies are going to go up too. And that's a hard thing moving forward.
Well, and funny, in the spirit of knowledge, right? The fact that the unknown, we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know how long it was going to last, right? I mean, I remember restaurants, right? So restaurants were like, oh, you could open 50% and you get 50% of your seating. That was a weekend. Literally Monday comes, they shut all the restaurants down. I mean, in the sense of indoor dining. I mean, that change in itself just changed the game. It just changed how things operate. Mm-hmm. And some restaurants really continue to hurt because they had to completely shut down. Well, where those that were lucky that had drive-through systems, right? And for example, I won't mention names, but there's restaurants in our own Lakewood community that we saw them continue working. And there's some restaurants that kept their sales at somewhat regular numbers, but then there's some that just had to completely close, and they completely hurt, So, but the fact that it changed from one weekend to 50% to zero on Monday, which is crazy how fast that happened.
Yeah.
And that unknown and how fast everything happened. I mean, of course, that's why people are like, what's going on?
And like you said, like even like going from 0 to 50%, it's like, okay, great, that's 50% more. But when you have like to say to run a restaurant, in order to run a restaurant for 50% of the customers and the cost to run the restaurant for 100% of the customers, it's not twice as much. It's very close in cost. So like your cost basically stays consistent when you're talking about like your lease, keeping the lights on, keeping the grills fired up, a lot of the product anyway. Like it's going to be hard to make it with these like restrictive guidelines of like, only 50% capacity. Like if a business under normal times a year ago was only running at 50% capacity, well, then they wouldn't have leased a place that fits twice as many people, right? Like you would lease a place half the size.
As we both know, working with the Chamber of Commerce, obviously business relies on volume. Volume is what makes.
That's why Cane's still rocking, man. You see those guys?
See, I didn't want to mention names, but you did.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's fine.
Did we agree on that?
No, they're doing good. They're doing great. I mean, in the sense that they're keep operating because they have a great drive-through.
Did you alluded to them?
That's
earlier?
what I was alluding to.
Gotcha.
Where they have a great drive-through system.
Gotcha.
They are, for them, for what it's worth, it was a good fact that they had a great drive-through system.
I'm sure they still got hit, right? Because they were pretty busy.
Oh yeah, I mean, people still walk in, but the restaurants that couldn't, right, are the ones that are hurting. Right. And so,
but some of them, like some of them got creative and they really pushed like the delivery and it really
curbside pickup.
The positive side, I think, that really showed a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, a lot of innovation, people really grinding and like making it work. And I think there's positives going out of this thing. Number one, we learned what works, what doesn't work when it comes to shutting things down. We learned a lot about representation and where kind of like things come down from and how
county, city, state,
the importance of having a relationship at the local level to reach the upper levels, and then education, man. Like we're going to do. My hope is that there's a lot more training when it comes to teachers being able to teach online if needed, and then there's probably some growth that can happen there, and then also if something like this ever happens again, making sure the students that are maybe underserved or need more attention, they're not going to get left in the dust again. We're going to have something in place where we can make sure those students don't fall maybe even more behind than they currently are. So there's a lot of positives there.
Of course. I mean, I had to symbolically, and for what it's worth, obviously it's still my day job is the Lakewood Chamber, so I wanted to make sure that I went to a sit down dine-in experience not right away, but soon after the dine-in was allowed. And I went to Sunrise Cafe. Did I just mention the name? Yes. I went to
see, you did it too.
I caught myself. But I went to a local restaurant in Lakewood to, patronize them, of course, and help them. But I also was curious to see how this new norm, or this, I hate calling it a norm, but this new experience would be. Yeah. And kudos to all the restaurants out there that are doing their part to keep social distancing, keeping their customers safe. Because that restaurant that I had breakfast, they had a good system, masks were on or face coverings, and I was just very happy to see how they were adapting to this new situation. And obviously, I've done a couple more visits at other restaurants. As I like to eat a little bit in Lakewood, but that's part of my job, to visit restaurants.
Very good at your job,
but very good at that part of my job, right? But it's really good to see. I'm just want to for sure give them a public, shout out that they're definitely doing their part to continue business, but keeping their customers safe. And I think that's good to see. And I'm sure other restaurants throughout LA County are doing the same. But
a lot of business, man. Like I was talking to John from Kidstown.
You had him here the other day.
And dude, the steps that they're going through to ensure people's safety. I mean, he showed me how they clean like the ball pits and like it's very elaborate. And then just like only using like half the balls, mask required. He's following all this. He's very concerned with following the guidelines, but it's also a family-owned business that has taken an incredible hit, and it's up to the community to support them, make sure they don't go out of business. Because, like I was saying in that last podcast with him, anytime there was an event, he always sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
When there was a fundraiser, he always gave,
Right.
whether it was cash or gift cards.
And many local businesses that are local community, they tend to do that. And so kudos to Kidstown for doing that.
And so when we say shop Lakewood or support local businesses, that's what we're talking about. We're not just talking about tax revenue. Tax revenue helps the city as well.
Of course.
But it's really that the effect that those businesses have on making sure events are able to happen, that nonprofits and charities are able to go, because these small businesses, they give a lot back to the community. So when you're thinking about where you're going to spend your dollar at, if you spend it at a place that gives back to the community, if you have kids, you might be enjoying that effect directly. Or if you don't, like maybe it's your grandkids or your nephew, like you're giving back by supporting those businesses. So I have a very soft spot for Kidstown and businesses all around.
And just like Kidstown and some of the larger corporate companies, I'm always happy to see how they have a corporate responsibility branch, when I call it that, to their business model. And I'm happy to see that. There's more bigger franchises that do that, and I'm happy to see that because they take an interest in the local community. And obviously, running in a local chamber, it's exciting to see how folks united for the Lakewood Cares event, right? So local businesses, and I'll give them a shout out because they were supportive. Costco, Target, that was a corporate responsible, but then you have a local grocery outlet that obviously is a family owned business. It's a chain, but it's definitely a family owned, and they have been nothing but great to work with. And in this pandemic, they really got to support the community. But again, the Lakewood Cares event, that was very a good sign where how people get together and
who was responsible for that event?
Mainly the Lakewood Center. Dina, our board member, definitely sparked that idea, and obviously engaged our chamber and the city, and obviously they hosted it at their center. But it was just good to know that 1,000 families in Lakewood were helped, that were provided some support. But again, local businesses do that to our community, and so education, business, they all intertwine, and they're all critical to all of us, for and communities. I mean, obviously, I have to say this because it's the opportunity we're live, and I have to say it. But one of our
you thought we were live?
No, hold on. For you and I, my first ever, at least, we had a first ever meeting at Chuck E. Cheese. Oh, so geez. Brad was
guilty.
Daddy daycare one day.
Mandy was out of town.
She was, out of town, and he had the girls, his daughters, and we had a standing meeting on Friday, and we had it at Chuck E. Cheese. So it was the first time ever I had a business meeting at Chuck E. Cheese. Yep. But joking aside, and that's
if I ever run for president, that'll be my thing. I'm like, my first thing I'm gonna do is like meetings are now at Chuck E. Cheese.
But it was good to have that experience because that was at least for me, it was the first that we were having a. But I mean, how different, if you think about that, is it to having a meeting at a restaurant?
It's really not.
It's a business.
I mean, well, it's less distracting.
It is, but
it's less fun.
Yeah,
I had a good time.
Seeing
I got a lot of tickets
and helping them.
They had fun too.
Yeah, it was fun. But having them involved, but again, it's funny how things just intertwine, if that's the word I'm trying to use, or mix up.
That often, I mean,
makes sense.
I kind of battle with that a little bit. I mean, obviously, like we have a relationship where I felt comfortable saying like, hey, do you mind having the meeting there? I'm watching the girls. But that's kind of like how I look at a lot of things. It's like most people that are elected officials, whether they sit on a board or they're parents themselves, or they have a full plate too. So I mean, we're all human at the end of the day, and I think that sometimes there's an overabundance of formality and like how things are supposed to be done, when really it's just can you communicate? Can you act? Can you put in the effort? And like everything works together. And sometimes, man, you just gotta go to Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, and I think that just keeps things human, if that makes sense. Like,
it does.
It's okay. But again,
it was a team builder. That's why I did it.
Team builder. Okay, that's what it was. But it was a first for sure for me.
Yeah.
The first, meeting at
first
Chuck E.
time ever going to Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh no.
Okay.
But official business with your boss at Chuck E. Cheese.
You like eat there alone all the time. It's weird. Not weird.
But again, how education and business and they all play a role. So it's important. It's important to, I think, in the spirit of going back to the conversation on hand, staying engaged, staying involved. It's critical to, every community. I think this pandemic, I would hope, and I hope that's what taught people the importance of their local government and their local representation. And should they still be critical? Absolutely, they should be critical of their local representative.
Yeah, more so than ever. You should grade people.
But going back to respectful, there's a way. There's like I'll tell you, I get some DMs sometimes. They're like, "Well, we need this." I'm like, whatever happened to like being just respectful? I don't need.
So you are getting my texts.
Yes, those two, Brad. I get those at midnight on a Sunday. When you're working all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But it's important that I think civility is also important too.
It is.
And in public service, I think one thing that people don't realize, it's a part-time job for a lot of us local. I mean, I have
people think like elected officials are just making bank.
Oh no, okay, that not only that, but that it's our full-time job.
Right.
And so I think just as a another educational FYI to folks.
Yeah.
Being a local like that at a local city, that's not LA or Long Beach. It's a part-time job. So obviously, and this is public information. Our great mayor in Lakewood, he for the longest time was a deputy sheriff with the sheriff's station and did an excellent work, but he was still also serving his local city. I run the Chamber of Commerce with you, and we do daily work, but my part-time job is around my local city council, but that's not my full-time job, and people think, and so sometimes, and I'm making a point there because sometimes I get DMs from the community, and for the most part, I'm very responsive. And when I say most of the part, on time, but people expect instant. And this whole instant world that we live in now, it's really, sometimes it throws you off.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I'm at work, so I'm focused on work. We're at a board meeting with, my bosses. I can't respond during that time. I'll wait till my lunchtime or after work, and people expect an answer instantly.
I appreciate so much. I love it when people ask me a question via text and 10 minutes later give me the question mark text right after. Oh, you're not getting a response now. Like, I'm so stubborn. That's like one of my things. Although sometimes every once in a while I'm like, oh, I'm glad they did that because I didn't see the first one. But I guess you can't take the good with the bad. But
that point of that we live in this world of instant. Like, everything has to be instant, and sometimes certain things can wait.
Yeah.
The other day I told someone
there's that diagram, right? Have you ever seen that diagram? It's like urgent, not urgent, important, not important. And like, so there's like 4 squares and you got to pick which one that thing goes into, and it helps you like how to address the problem.
I haven't seen that.
Okay. I'll send it to you.
But
it's cool.
I'll just trust you for now.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that cool.
But I think just from I guess what I'm alluding to here or trying to make a point is as a sitting policymaker, I feel that civility and having dialogue is important, but it works both ways. It's a two-way street.
And I feel like my word of the week is humility. I feel like just knowing that you don't know like what that other person is doing. Like, you don't know I think people have this imagination of like, oh, you didn't return my text. You're literally sitting on your hands watching Tiger King for the 3rd time. Like, that's probably what you're doing, but I'm not important enough to but then you could be like, I was messaging somebody the other day and I was like, oh man, they're not responding, and then he had told me, well, I got hit by a car earlier when I was on my bike. I'm fine, but I haven't been able to get to my phone. I'm like, I guess I'll let you slide, Well, you just don't know.
What about the example where it's about 3:00 midday, right? Mid-afternoon. Someone had originally sent me a DM on my Instagram at 10:14 a.m. I think it was. I remember the time, 10 in the morning. I had not responded because obviously I was busy. And then it's one of those, it's weird how Instagram works, but if we're not friends on Instagram, it's on my like a different folder where it's like my unread messages because we're not friends anyway. But then this person puts 52 comments on one of my public posts, like, why are you ignoring me? Why are you ignoring me?
Yeah, that's obnoxious.
I was like, who's like, I'm sorry, that's like psycho status. Who does that? 52 like messages, like, why are you ignoring me? But I'm like, first of all, I've never talked to you. If it was like a week later and you send me 10 messages or 3, let me be more realistic, then I understand. I mean, maybe I'm ignoring you, quote unquote, or not acknowledge you, but you just text me a couple hours ago in the morning and I just haven't responded. How does that constitute to 52 public?
Yeah, but then you respond and then all of a sudden you're in this war of...
No, I said, it's conversation's a two-way street, so give me an opportunity to respond. Like,
oh, you did?
Well, I said, please, and I was respectful. I was like, please give me an opportunity to respond. If I was ignoring you, it's a different story, but I don't even know who you are.
Right.
Anyway, that's a little venting moment.
like I really think that the biggest things that I care about, just as somebody who is involved in the community, is just transparency and communication. I think people are starting to realize like the nuances of policy and the nuances of actually representing large groups of people. But as long as you communicate what the challenges are and you are transparent about not only like what you believe, but what you're doing to address the problem, I think that's the biggest thing.
Makes sense.
And I do want to touch on, because we are at our hour mark.
Okay, good.
This is the first time it's worked though. It usually gets stuck with like, I don't know, 10 minutes left, and I just stare at it and I go, this is the longest 10 minutes ever. So tell me what's new with I'm going to tee you up a little bit. What are we doing with the Lakewood Community News? What can people expect in this upcoming month's edition?
Yes, so a couple of things. One, we have our annual fireworks stand in Lakewood, and Lakewood is moving forward with selling fireworks, safe and sane, of course, fireworks. The Lakewood Chamber, little plug, we're on the corner of Paramount and Carson, and at the Walmart parking lot. And so we definitely are doing that. That'll be our annual reminder to folks that we'll be doing selling fireworks. We have a couple things going on.
And it's going to be curbside, right?
Curbside, and it's going to be a mix of things. So yeah, it's going to be different. But the chamber specifically, we're going to be doing delivery for the first time. So that'll be a first time that we do that. See how it goes. But respecting that people might want to not visit, or leave their house, we want to be understanding of that, and we will be having our board members actually delivering these fireworks. So we'll have everything online soon and explain the process, including the paper. We'll have that on the paper.
So we should put a video together for that to send out in a post. And so in the paper there'll be a order form, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And online. So everything will be on paper in the paper and online. And then we wanted to make sure that with the times that we're living in, we acknowledge our graduates. And Lakewood has a couple of high schools, so you'll be all getting some social media invitations to send us your favorite graduate
I think
picture.
It's so cool. That's the idea that we kind of mentioned earlier.
The other day,
but you had the idea, and I think right away it was just like, obviously.
So make sure that we invite all Lakewood folks to acknowledge your favorite. And I say favorite because that's a little, hopefully that's a little plug to send their graduate picture, and we're gonna make either a small donation or a simple $20 contribution. We're gonna have the picture of your graduate on the paper and just kind of acknowledge to what I call at my local community the spirit of keeping the graduation spirit alive, because one of the things I remember being in high school is loving the all the fun activities that you go to, grad night, prom.
It's important.
And all that was gone for these poor kids,
that's why. So with the LCN, it goes to every single home in Lakewood.
27,000 homes.
27,000.
Or 20,000 copies.
Yeah, and it goes to pretty much everybody in the city. And then so in the paper you can submit. And what do we say? Like $20. It's nominal fee.
Yeah, we're thinking like $20.
Yeah, and if you're
we have a Venmo, so.
Oh yeah, we have the Venmo
Lakewood
now.
Chamber.
Yeah, look at us.
Lakewood Chamber.
All 2020 out. But submit your photo of your graduate, their full name, and
what high school.
And what high school.
Yep.
So Lakewood, Mayfair, wherever, we're gonna put it all. It's gonna be a full page, maybe even more if we get enough submissions.
Maybe 2 pages, but for sure 1 full page.
And I think it's a great idea, because not only are we supporting in celebrating the graduates in our city, in our community, but it's also a way for the community to help support small businesses and the chamber through all this. And that's something that we've really been focused on, zooming out just a little bit, even with like our community cleanup day. And like, we didn't just go around to just our members, because we're membership based, but we didn't just go around to just our paying members. We helped businesses that aren't even membership, just businesses in the community that needed support, needed help boarding up. Because that's really, that really is what our mission is to support the community
and advocate for community.
And our city partners have been amazing too.
beyond amazing. We have a great local city council. We have a great staff we have a great park staff when we have our local events. So it's a great city to work in and with. And I think I am blessed, and I think we're blessed to work in Lakewood in regards to the work that we do every day to keep advocating for the local community.
Yeah, it's amazing how close we can work with them and partner. So fireworks is gonna be huge. So any support we get from the community is gonna be amazing, because that's really that is our biggest fundraiser for the entire year. And we were afraid we weren't gonna be able to do it. So the fact that we're able to do it at all is huge.
Right, and we're moving forward with it.
And honestly, what I hope is that this year is a massive 4th of July.
Right.
I hope that people are safe and they follow guidelines.
Absolutely.
And all that. But like from your home, like with your family, celebrating what makes this country awesome, and just putting all the BS aside and just enjoying your loved ones.
Yep.
Watching some fireworks light up in the sky, and I think that's what's about. And
the biggest
have to keep that alive.
And the other big reminder, just I think a plug-in for all or us that live in a lot of different cities. Obviously, you live in Bellflower, and we both work in Lakewood, but I live in Lynwood. We are experiencing a crazy amount of illegal fireworks.
Man, it is insane.
It is crazy. So I think,
what is that?
It's just people being irresponsible. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
But it wasn't like this.
No, but people are just blowing these illegal fireworks, and I mean, we need to be conscientious of our veterans, our pets. I don't even have a pet, but our pets in general speaking. Yeah. They're suffering, and it's not fair. And the craziest part about it is it's not just like at a random, not random, but a normal 8 o'clock time. It's like at midnight, 1 a.m. That's not fair to our seniors, to our folks. So I just hope that as much as we're excited to celebrate the 4th of July, that we also be conscientious of the fact that, 4th of July is one day. It's not weeks before or weeks after.
Yes. And I think, on 4th, I hope that people can come out and celebrate and, have fun. But dude, like here, like I'm off of Artesia in Woodruff. It has been crazy
everywhere. Trust me. It's been, everywhere. And I asked, from what it's worth, that we be conscious that it affects, many of our vulnerable communities.
Yeah.
And it's just not fair to, for those of us that want to celebrate on the 4th of July and have a good day and
dude,
good
who's
time.
selling all these illegal fireworks?
Well, they're illegal fireworks for a reason, right? They're not being sun.
Where do they even?
Like in our city, for example, you could only light them up between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. That's the perfect situation, right?
Yeah.
Another quick plug before I forget, the Lakewood community, a lot of our restaurants are going to participate in this. We're going to put out a flyer, but we're going to have a 4th of July family packet so that people want to buy food from our local restaurants. They're going to have specials, and we'll put those out soon. And so we're working with the city of Lakewood on that, the Parks and Rec staff, and those that participate will we send an email just kind of asking the different restaurants who wants to participate. All we're asking the restaurants is put together a family meal packet for 4th of July. It could be a one-day thing. It could be the weekend, whatever they want, but at least hopefully many restaurants can participate in, and hopefully that helps stimulate some of the sales for the restaurants as well.
Yeah. Man, we covered so much.
We're good.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Are you sweating yet?
Just a little bit. I'm like dying inside it, but I'm
good. Anything else?
No, again, thanks for the opportunity. And, we talked so much about local, representation and being involved. I think might be your time, Brad, to consider running for office one day too, because,
running for office,
we need people to, you have two young girls and, school age, and, maybe we talk so much about school board. You never know. Maybe a local school board, or
maybe
have you ever thought about it?
Well, so I went to Lakewood High School. I've been in the community for a long time, but that has been something I've thought about, because I have a 3 and a 6-year-old in the district. But I think it's a really tough time right now, and I think that, and my hat goes off to the current board for having to deal with a lot of like these issues, and there's been other issues
the
too.
Unknowns.
So it's not that's not an easy position. But if I felt that there was a need and people thought that I could serve, then I would definitely
Right.
enjoy the conversation.
Well, and I think it's important to bring different perspectives to a board. For example, when I joined, I would tell people I'm going to bring the former student perspective, right?
Yeah.
Not the traditional parent like you that have kids in the school district. So for me, it was a different narrative, right? When I ran,
and that's a very important perspective.
It is,
because
it is.
it's all about the students. I would be coming at it, with as a parent.
right, no, and that's a very important, conversation, perspective to have. And what better way than folks that grew up in the community? So, you definitely live in the community. You have two young girls one that goes to the school and one will go to school. Will go to school soon. Oh, I can't wait for her to go to school.
I know, man. She's
gonna give you that gray hair for sure.
I haven't put too much thought, but I don't know.
Well, but I think the most important part, besides what experiences you bring to the table, as I acknowledge my current board and myself for that example, but the best thing that anyone could bring is like passion and commitment.
Yeah.
And you have to have it because, I serve on my alumni association, my undergrad. I mean, if I wasn't so pro Kelsey Dominguez Hills and I love my campus and and it made me who I am today partly, I wouldn't be as engaged and as involved to give back to my board, to the board.
You know what's funny is,
so I think that's where I feel like someone has to be committed and passionate to what board they sit on because they want to contribute to that.
You have to be
have
a right fit. That's why that's a tough
like
question.
that little fire, you have to have that.
Because there has to be a compatibility too.
Of course.
Because sometimes you might be a great, you might have the passion, but there's you have to be able to make it better.
And at least my perspective and leadership too is what legacy you're going to leave, regardless if it's a status of a position or your job at the chamber or whatever capacity. What is going to be your legacy, right?
Right.
So when you leave the Long Beach City College one day, that's going to happen one day. You're going to be happy about all the work that you were able to do while you were there and all the things that you were able to help produce videos and all that fun stuff that you do in your line of work. But that's part of the legacy that you'll be leaving at the college when you leave one day. I'm not telling you you're leaving, but one day.
You know something I don't?
One day. But same thing for me. Now I could talk about those 10 years I was in school board. I could talk about things that we did.
Right. And you take that experience to the next thing that you're going to do.
Exactly. And you take those experiences and that's part of what we talked about earlier. When our kids get exposed to experiences outside of their natural comfort, they're going to take those experiences and take them to the next level. So I think we should always continue learning and bringing knowledge to our lives and to our surrounding loved ones and always continue to do good for our community. So for as long as I'm alive, I'm going to continue to be involved, it being through a local Rotary Club to a local commission, a local it's just in my blood at this point to stay involved, to stay engaged, because it's important, and seeing the results, it's I think the most exciting part.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's a better way to finish with that. But I will echo what you said. You are a great example of somebody who brings not only your personal life experience, but also your learned experience in the different roles that you've and different hats you wear. By the way, you got me to say that way too much. You used to say that all the time, like wearing a different hat. So I say that way too much now too. But you're welcome. But you do that really well. And at the core of it is you're very authentic and you're very passionate. And this has been awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you coming, making the time. And
finally, right?
Yeah, I know. Even though I guess I tried to throw you off because I sent you the wrong time yesterday too. Guys, thank you for watching. We will see you soon. Support your local paper. Support the Chamber of Commerce. Be safe 4th of July.
Please do.
And make sure you vote, engage, communicate. And we'll see you guys next time. Later.